The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Joe Manning here with Infusionsoft. So I'm filling in here for Scott Richins, and we're going to talk a lot about WordPress today. So if you guys can hear me and the audio sounds pretty good, just go ahead and let me know in the comments or the questions box on GoToWebinar here. Awesome. Hey, thank you guys so much here. I'm going to wait a few more minutes for more people to log on here. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about WordPress, of a situation that you're involved in, or just general questions about WordPress that you feel like we could answer quickly in this webinar, go ahead and shoot a tweet over to Ask Infusionsoft, and I'll be looking out for messages on there, and we'll see if we can answer a few of your questions today. And also the hashtag during this webinar is ISMastermind. So I'm just going to give it a few more minutes here for more people to get on here so everyone here can enjoy this experience. All right, here it's been a few minutes since we just got started here on the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending. It's massively appreciated here. And Scott Richins, our mastermind webinar genius here at Infusionsoft, invited me to speak on something I care a lot about, which is WordPress. And I often get a lot of emails, and I come across a lot of tweets and messages and kind of questions online from fellow Infusionsoft users or people somewhat connected, or maybe they know an Infusionsoft user, and they're asking about how to use WordPress with Infusionsoft and vice versa. So what we're going to go over today is all the essentials around just understanding what's going on in WordPress. I'm not going to go into too deep into the practicalities of it and the specific use cases because WordPress and like Infusionsoft is very versatile and very adaptable in many situations here. So definitely, if you have any questions, I'll try to make some time here at the end just to make sure that we can answer all your questions and everything else here. So with no further ado, I want to kind of explain a few things here that you guys might already have heard about the Mastermind webinar series, which is they actually have a webinar series on the Virtual Academy. Which is a way to learn more about Infusionsoft, whether you're new, whether you're a veteran of Infusionsoft. It's a great way to keep your skills sharp and be really, really engaged into the activities of Infusionsoft. Additionally, I also want to let you know about Icon 14. And some of you are probably wondering what's Icon? Well, if you've attended InfusionCon in the past, it's the same thing, but it's actually bigger. So Icon 14 is our annual user conference that occurs in Phoenix, Arizona, and it is dubbed the ultimate event for small business success. We have an amazing lineup of keynotes, including Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, JJ Ramberg, Peter Shankman, and of course, Clayton Mask. These keynotes have actually all spoken at world-class conferences, and we're glad that Icon is their next conference that they're going to speak at. So until December 15th, we have a really, really affordable rate to attend the conference, which is $399. If you know an ICC or you know some Infusionsoft partners, they might already have a discount code available. So be sure to ask them. But otherwise, just go ahead and purchase your tickets. Just on a side note, there is a sense of urgency here because we did sell out InfusionCon 2 years in a row. And when we say sold out, it will be sold out. We will be at the Phoenix Convention Center, so we're expecting between 2,000 and 3,000 people to attend, and we're very confident we will achieve that. Phoenix is going to be awesome in April. It's going to be not hot. It's not going to be ugly outside. It's going to be perfect, and you'll definitely have a buffet of learning that will be occurring throughout the event. So Scott also wanted me to tell you to vote on upcoming webinar sessions. And I updated the screenshot here. And basically what he wants you to do is to suggest ideas on topics that you want to learn more about. On a side note, be sure to check the archives so you don't suggest an idea that's already been talked about before. But also to vote on other ideas. And what Scott and team will do is that they'll actually do some research and they'll develop a webinar, and it'll be actually one of the topics here that we talk about on these mastermind calls. So I think it's really cool, and we can see that event management is a top topic here, along with evergreen like landing pages and so forth. So you never know, we might actually talk about it pretty soon. So go ahead and visit mastermindwebinars.uservoice.com. So now we're going to move on here and discuss the 7 WordPress essentials that every Infusionsoft user needs to know. On a side note, probably 6 out of the 7 topics I will explain here have nothing to do with Infusionsoft. However, it's good to know all the different aspects of WordPress so you can ensure that your website is functional, you're driving traffic, you're getting leads, and you're closing more sales. So everything I'm sharing with you is in the context of you as a small business to ensure that you are successful with WordPress and Infusionsoft. So the first question that a lot of people ask, and probably more lately that I'm more so defending around, is why WordPress? Because WordPress has not in the past been very, very active amongst the small business community because it was arguably labeled as a blogging application. However, just in the past few years, especially in the past few years, in fact, WordPress has become a total solution for actually creating and publishing content on the web. And I know content is a very broad term here, but basically what we mean is a content management system where you're actually publishing images, text, video, audio, etc. And what you want to do is just consider that WordPress has evolved in much of the same ways that Infusionsoft has evolved in the past few years. And that WordPress's community is very large. Its solution is very flexible, and you can bend it around just about every use case you have. It is relatively easy to use, and it's always becoming easier. It's relatively quick and for performance, so you can serve millions of page views reliably. And then ultimately, what I love most, or second to most, about WordPress is the rapid deployment. So what you can do is that if you have an idea today, like you could actually build an entire WordPress site in the span of this webinar, like from soup to nuts, from concept to actually shipping it live. You can actually develop a full website within WordPress, and that has always got me excited because it's empowering people to create online solutions. It empowers people to communicate more effectively online. And it also allows them to have a web presence without requiring a lot of resources to do that. But most importantly, if you ask any WordPress user, or if you ask anyone at a WordCamp, they will tell you the community is the number one reason. And we'll get to that at the end. But basically, that's kind of the pros for WordPress. That's why people love it, and it's used by over 20% of people on the internet for all websites. However, and this is all probably why you're here today, it's not always that easy. Just in a nutshell, I mean, WordPress is known to have a lot of updates, plugin updates, theme updates, and what they call core updates. Theme development itself is a little tricky depending on your situation. For going completely custom, you definitely want to use the developer. But I can tell you that over time that has become a little bit easier. There's also a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about security with WordPress. And it's been a hot topic in the recent year or two. And I want to kind of put some of those concerns to rest. However, there are a few things that you want to keep in mind if you want to make sure that your business is PCI compliant, which is often what your merchant gateways require you to have. That it's important to make sure you get that done. Also, likewise, setting up WordPress as a complete content management system does take a little bit of work. It's not yet push button easy, but it's getting there. And there's ways to actually help you achieve that without spending too much time hacking away at it. And then admittedly, just like Infusionsoft, you all know that there is a little bit of a learning curve. When you join Infusionsoft, you have to understand how tags work. You have to know how automation works. You have to figure out the campaign builder. Well, WordPress is no different. You have to understand relationships between pages, posts, tags, categories, widgets, plugins, etc. So what you want to do is just consider for the fact that WordPress, like Infusionsoft and any other software, does take a little bit of understanding. It does have its own little quirks and characteristics that makes it special. So what we want to talk about today is basically just explaining and demystifying a few of these topics. And I want to give you some context into just basically WordPress in general. It's not for complete novices here. I would like to think that if you're interested in WordPress, you've been using it for at least a little bit, because some of the topics here will require that you're at least somewhat familiar with WordPress. However, on the flip side of that, if you're a developer or if you what they call contributed to the core, you probably won't get a whole lot out of today's webinar. But that said, for everyone in between, you'll definitely get some context here into how you can maximize WordPress with Infusionsoft. So let's get into it. So there's actually WordPress.org and WordPress.com. They're two different entities, but they are all based on the same thing. So first off, with WordPress.com, so Matt Mullenweg is the founder of WordPress, right? So he has founded a company named Automatic. And what that company does is they provide WordPress solutions, and they provide hosting for free and paid. And they basically run something called WordPress VIP. And that's a thing where websites like TechCrunch and Huffington Post and all that are served on. But what you need to keep in mind is that WordPress.com, although it's free to get started, for a paid plan, you still don't have any custom code modifications. So if you're thinking about using third-party plugins that they don't provide, you're pretty much out of luck on that. You're not allowed to upload custom themes. You can significantly modify the themes that they have, and they have many themes, but you're not allowed to upload your own theme from scratch. Generally, they're also fast and stable and cost effective. I believe they have a little bit over, I don't know, a couple million blogs in their network. And if I'm off on that, I apologize. But I know it's in excess of 1 million. And that means a lot. In the world of WordPress, if you can host and serve over 1 million sites, you're definitely stable and you're credible. And I think the reason why they're that stable and that fast is because they don't have code modifications and custom plugins. So there's a pro and a con to that requirement. Lastly, WordPress.com often secretly releases bleeding edge user interface changes and features. So for instance, if you log into WordPress.com, you might have an interface it looks all blacked out. The reason why it's done that way is that's going to be the new interface for WordPress.org for the rest of the world to use. But what they're doing is that they're testing it in like a live environment where millions, potentially, are actually using that edition of WordPress. And it's used for stress testing it and checking it out and getting user feedback as well. So again, nothing too disparaging here about WordPress.com. If you're new to WordPress or you just want to get something up right away, you can absolutely use it at WordPress.com. However, as you get more experienced, you will definitely crave the need for more custom modifications and flexibility. And that's where WordPress.org comes into play. So WordPress.org is simply the entity that actually distributes WordPress itself. To use WordPress, you do need a web server or a web host. You could host it locally on your own computer, with a couple tools out there. But in the end, you need to make sure that you have a web host where you're going to put your WordPress software on. You can also change the code and upload custom plugins and themes. As a word of caution here, if you're not familiar with code, you probably shouldn't be changing it because, if you forget a semicolon, you're screwed. So what you need to do is make sure that, the changes that you make, understand that, that they will be live and it's immediate whenever you make changes to the code. And sometimes there's no, undo on that. Lastly, like I said, WordPress.org, the performance varies widely because of the host that you're on. So some hosts online, often called shared hosts, offer some substandard performance for what you need as a business. And we'll get into that in a second here later. But the point is that WordPress.org gives you flexibility, but sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot. So you want to make sure that when you're using WordPress.org, that you take the time to either learn WordPress a little bit more in depth yourself, have someone on your team know WordPress, or find a WordPress consultant in your area that is able to support your needs. So if you have questions, you could just ring them up or shoot them an email and they can help you out. So hopefully that explains the first question I get asked all the time, the difference between WordPress.org and .com. Neither of them are bad, but they do offer different experiences. One is software that you download, and one is a service that you access on the web. So on the topic of hosting here, I'm going to talk a little bit about where you can actually host your WordPress site. So lots of web hosts out there offer what they call shared hosting. So if you're paying in the range of $8 a month or less, you're probably on a shared host. Sometimes I've seen web hosting for $3 a month. So what you want to keep in mind with shared hosting, and again, these services are absolutely doing their best to provide optimal performance for everyone. However, because it's a shared host, your website is hosted along with 100 or 200 others within your same server. And what that could mean is that if one of those sites gets popular, it could actually slow down the traffic of your website. So what you want to do is just keep that in mind with shared hosting. that, if you're going to do a big product launch, you do not want to be on a shared host. So the next step is dedicated hosting. And this is actually really, really cool if you're tech savvy. So dedicated hosting is where you actually have your own, they call virtual private server, where you are afforded dedicated resources from the CPU and the memory and the bandwidth and the networking, that you are able to actually manage your own WordPress instance. When I say manage WordPress instance, that doesn't just mean WordPress itself. That means you're also responsible for setting up the MySQL, maintaining your own caching and performance, rebooting a server if needed, loading in different modules, maintaining your PHP, maintaining your Apache modules. And it can be a little hairy for most people to manage. I myself don't really like that. I just like to get straight to the point and focus on creating amazing content. So, and that leads to my last category here, which is managed hosting. So managed hosting is sort of a blend between shared and dedicated. These companies are actually able to provide you valuable web hosting services at a modest price. It's not the cheapest, but it's reasonable. They oversee the infrastructure. They oversee, PHP and Apache and all those other pieces working together. And they actually automatically update your WordPress for you. And they basically maintain it, and they have very high, really high standards. And WordPress is just, it's a software, so it requires some maintenance, requires some additional tuning, and these companies actually provide that. So on that recommendation of that you do want to use managed hosting, I want to recommend two companies to check out. First of which is WP Engine. They're based out of Texas, and we've been using them very, very happily for the past, I believe, 2 years. And they have had a phenomenal product. They went through recent rebranding. Their service is top notch. Their support is amazing. And basically, they're able to easily allow us to run two blogs seamlessly without any downtime. Another one I want to recommend is Pagely. They're actually based here in Arizona. And I think they were first to the scene before WP Engine. And Pagely is very similar in terms of offering managed hosting. They offer technical support. They offer security, built well beyond, I guess, what other web hosts provide. And it's relatively easy to manage. I haven't had any problems with my Pagely instance. I think they're a few bucks cheaper than WP Engine, so you can absolutely compare the prices and make the decision for how important your website is to your business. But those two are definitely managed hosts. I want to give an honorable shout out to DreamHost and Bluehost, where they offer a blend of shared hosting, dedicated hosting, and managed hosting. So they're starting to try that out because managed hosting is an important aspect of WordPress, especially for business owners. If you're not running a business where, you know, we have lots of traffic kind of beating down your door, you probably don't need one of these hosts. But our Infusionsoft blog, receives over uh, 20,000 views per month. And that's something that we actually need to make sure that it's up and it's accessible and there's no problems with it. It is possible that we perhaps could skate by on using a DreamHost instance. However, I want to have a lot of uptime. I want to make sure it performs nicely. So the questions you want to ask yourself when you're considering your web host, or you want to make improvements to your website, which is hosted on WordPress, first and foremost, check around and see how their technical support is. Even if you're technical, I'm fairly tech savvy, there will be a time that you need to contact our tech support and figure something out. So figure out what support options you have. Find out how easy is it to create and restore your data. You want to have daily backups if possible, because if your site does get hacked or something does break, you want to make sure that you can easily revert back to changes safely and securely. You also want to understand exactly how the updates are managed. So for sites like DreamHost and Bluehost, and even GoDaddy, the updates aren't rolled out to you automatically, but you can update as you need to just by clicking a button within WordPress. Now, WP Engine, their model is they will notify you when updates are available, and they will notify you that they will upgrade you on a certain date. So this gives you a chance to either upgrade yourself right then, or you can just let it go and know that in due time you'll be updated. Pagely does the same thing. They automatically roll updates out to you. And I think that they're even a bit more obsessive about that. So they make sure that everyone's operating on the most current stable version of WordPress almost overnight once an update rolls out. So that's always very, very good. But again, usually the updates with WordPress, and I'll explain that in just a bit, are fairly easy to manage. You just click a button. The other thing that to keep in mind is that WordPress recently updated in WordPress 3.7 the automatic update feature. I've actually tried it out on a number of my sites, and it works fairly well. I haven't had any problems with it. However, some of these solutions like WP Engine and Pagely, I don't think that they let you auto update because that might override their systems. So the whole point here is that just be aware of updates and understand how that's managed. And then lastly, but certainly not in any less important than any of the above, is knowing what performance features you get. So a lot of these companies have different methodologies and different ideologies on how they approach performance. The end result should be the same. You want your website to load quick. You also want it to make sure your website loads quick from around the world. So these companies offer different methods on how to achieve that. I've been, again, personally very satisfied with WP Engine's approach, where they actually offer you a CDN, called Content Delivery Network, built in, and it takes zero effort to manage. But there's other ways to actually accomplish that in all the other web hosts that you have. If you're not sure, you don't have to even find out a new web host. You can ask the one that you currently have about all of this, and they will be more than happy to provide you answers because they want to make sure their customers, which are you, are happy. So then we're going to get a little bit more in depth here about managing content within WordPress. So what you want to make sure that you do is to understand the differences here between tags and categories. Behaviorally, both tags and categories are pretty much the same. But the point is that tags try to describe the content itself, whereas categories try to file the content into the appropriate section of your website. So over time, if you're like many WordPress users, you've probably been using tags and categories almost interchangeably, and not, and as a result, it's really messy. I've done that. My personal website is kind of a mess right now when it comes to tags and categories. But what you want to do is you don't want to necessarily obsess on this, but what you want to realize is that you want to basically figure out your categories. Categories are more important than tags because categories at a high level let you organize your content, and they also display your content a little differently when search engines access your website. Tags, though, they're not as important, and you could be just fine not using any tags. But if you do use tags, it's good to write tags about the content itself. So for instance, if I was doing a blog post about Customer Hub, I would probably include tags called membership website, small business, membership software, right? Whereas if I was going to put that into a category, I would say product update or product announcement. And the reason why that is because what I need to do is to be able to organize content not just for people reading it. I need to organize it for me as an author on the blog to know that we can actually access our content and share it later on. So a big question that some people have had questions about with tags and categories is the SEO impact or the ability to have your content seen in search engines. So here's a short answer. You don't want to have duplicate content, and some categories and some tag pages can result in duplicate content. With a proper tool that manages the SEO for your WordPress, you won't have to worry about that. But in general, you have to look beyond the SEO impact and think about the user impact. If someone accessed a tag titled, membership website, for that blog post about Customer Hub, if someone accessed that and there was only one post, how valuable is that to them? In general, it's not. What you want to do is make sure that your tags and categories correspond with multiple posts. So if you go to a tag on our blog titled InfusionCon or Icon, you will actually be able to find all posts related to Icon. So that's how you actually make tags and categories work. You can always change them. You can rename them. You can adjust them. You can change the posts and what categories and tags they belong to. But as a general rule, you want to have every post correspond to one category or multiple tags. So I hope that clears that up. And again, if you have questions on this, go ahead and let us know on Twitter by tweeting Ask Infusionsoft and include the hashtag of ISMastermind, and we'll answer that at the end here. So just as an example about how we use tags and categories, look at this. So I took a screenshot of our Infusionsoft blog this morning and basically just showed that we've basically published 870 posts. And of those 870 posts, which often have 4 to 6 tags in each one, I'm only consuming 831 tags. So what that means is I'm using tags multiple times for multiple posts, and that's perfectly fine. But you can also see that of the 870 posts, we've put them into 6 categories. Now that's not entirely true because there's 2 other categories on there which are hidden to the outside world. So it's basically we have all 870 posts put into 4 categories. So that's basically something that you want to strive for, is to keep your categories small and your tags manageable. It is possible, if I really tried, I could probably have 16,000 tags if I wanted to. But what you want to do is keep your tags manageable and not to have too many of them. If you do have too many, it's not a big problem, but it might slow down your WordPress database a little bit, and it might result in duplicate content penalties and so forth in search engines. So next question, I think a lot of people, I think generally understand, but I want to explain some of the differences here between, which are pages and posts. So pages and posts in WordPress do different things, but generally to the outside world is practically the same. So generally what you want to do is to think about how your content will be accessed and how you want to link to it in the future. So pages are more permanent in nature. So an about page, a pricing page, a contact us page, those are pages. Whereas if you have a sale or you have a new product announcement coming out, or you want to share a photo of your team or your processes as a business, that's what a post is used for. So with that in mind, just think about, when you're creating your website or managing your website, are there things that you could turn into pages? And are there some pages that you could turn into posts? And it's good to have a really good control on this and confidence in it, because when you need to make an announcement or you need to make a significant update to your website, you can make sure your content is displayed correctly. The thing also with posts versus pages is that posts are generally they're displayed a little differently than pages, and you might be able to customize that, and you might have a desire to change the format of it. So that's the key difference between pages and posts. They're also used, again, a little differently. So posts, again, are more dynamic in nature and not as permanent. So there's something called post types. We can get into that in just a bit. But the whole point of it is that posts aren't just limited to text. Posts can be other forms of content for you to display. But at the end of the day, here's the takeaway, is just to make sure that you understand at a high level the differences between pages and posts. Pages are more permanent in nature. Posts are more short-term and more time-relevant content that you publish. Shortcodes. Now, this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but it is relevant here. So let's say that you have a contact us page and you want to have a Google map on there or a YouTube video. What you would normally have to do is go to those websites, YouTube or Google, grab the JavaScript code or the HTML code that they provide you, go back to your site, click onto the text mode of your editor, and then paste in something that looks like what you see in the bottom left corner. And what that is HTML code. It's an embed code. So what shortcodes do, they bridge that gap so you don't have to worry about grabbing all that HTML code. You can grab literally a shorter code to actually accomplish the same result. So what we can see on the left side here is that that's a YouTube video on the left, and on the right side is also a YouTube video. And what you want to think about with shortcodes is which is easier. I personally like to look, and deal with the situation on the right versus the one on the left. It's also problematic to use traditional HTML in your posts because as your site changes and evolves, it might break with your theme. Additionally, if you go back into a post that you published, and we know this all happened to all of us here, if you have put in a YouTube video on a post and then you went into the visual editor and you clicked in the visual editor, you possibly lost that video or broke the code around it. With shortcodes, they don't break. It's literally just a line. You just make a new line and you put in that shortcode, and that's it. And it works between HTML mode and it works between visual mode. I believe the limitation of shortcodes is that I don't think you can put them in widgets. I might be wrong on that. I think they're making an update on that pretty recently, or they will soon. But generally speaking, shortcodes are primarily used within pages and posts that you've created. Next up is to talk a little bit more about SEO in general. So search engine optimization is a key aspect of maintaining our website so it's visible on the web. And WordPress is really, really good at creating and displaying content. However, what you want to keep in mind is that sometimes you need to put in some extra effort to describe the content that you have. So what I mean by that is, let's say you published a blog post about a product announcement. Well, you need to explain to the search engines a little bit more about that post and what people will read about it. So there's tools out there that makes it easy. There's something called WordPress SEO that helps you manage exactly what your title is, exactly what your meta description is, any keywords if you have that, and also the indexing ability. WordPress itself does not offer this native SEO component, but through the advent of plugins, you are able to easily and accurately manage that for your site. And my general recommendation is always think about the person who will be clicking on your link versus how are you going to get a better rank. So as long as you have a good description that is explaining the intent of what you will offer them on your web pages, I think you'll be good to go. There's a premium solution, meaning paid solution here, called Scribe SEO. This is very, very favored by the people who follow Copyblogger. And what Scribe SEO does is it does a little bit of what Yoast does, but it helps you actually create content within your WordPress. So what Scribe does is, as you're writing your blog post or a page, it will actually suggest words and sources for you to use to make that post even better. I'm not the hugest fan of that automated element of it. However, if you're just getting familiar with SEO and you're just kind of getting, you're starting to cut your teeth in the game of creating content, then absolutely is a huge asset to help you win that game. But Yoast, on the other hand, WordPress SEO by Yoast, what they do is they offer you an analysis, again, an automated analysis, but an analysis that explains to you, suggestions on how to improve your post, how frequent should you mention a certain keyword, have you mentioned a keyword too many times, and it's gonna warn you on certain things if it doesn't like it. And its recommendations are all founded all in best practices, and same with Scribe. They're both founded in best practices, and they both have good intent, but they help you do it in a different way. I personally recommend WordPress SEO by Yoast. It's free, it's easy to use, it supports Open Graph, it supports sitemaps. You name it, it can probably do it. So SEO is important. Again, just to make sure that you're not missing the point here. Even though you have these tools and these plugins, you still have to feed them data. You still need to tell these tools how to interpret your pages and what to tell other search engines. So there is tools to help, but they are not the silver bullet for, all right, we got SEO done, next. So just keep that in mind that you are subscribing to more maintenance here as you build out your website a bit more. But again, these are quick, they're easy. When it comes to developing a site and customizing it in either of these tools, they work perfectly. Another big chunk here that a lot of you are probably curious about is themes. And theming in WordPress is a little unique because there's different methodologies on how you accomplish the same goal. But a theme is basically responsible for displaying your content to the visitors on the outside. Unfortunately, they also require a lot of effort to maintain and achieve the results that you want. However, there's been a lot of advancements in the past few years of WordPress to make that a bit easier. One of the ideologies here that's used pretty successfully is the use of theme frameworks. And what theme frameworks are basically standards that other developers use to create and scale the ability of WordPress theme development. And for the end user, if you're not a developer, basically what these do, this helps you build out your website with the customization and the flexibility that you have in mind so it can be successful. So you can hire a developer and a developer might ask you, hey, well, what's your website on? You could say, oh, it's using thesis, or it's using Genesis, or it's using underscores. Knowing the theme framework will definitely help you in finding the right developer if you need to customize and deploy a new website. But theme frameworks and themes in general kind of break down to two different categories where you're making use of a child and a parent theme. And the point of this is, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but the point is that wherever you have a theme, themes get updated once in a while. And when a theme gets updated, it could actually overwrite all of your changes, causing you panic whenever you applied an update. But if you use a child themes don't get updated because they subscribe to the data that's in the parent theme, but while still maintaining its own identity. So what I mean by that is, for instance, we use Genesis on our Big Ideas blog, but we don't use Genesis itself for serving up the content. We actually created a child theme that uses the Genesis framework and is actually able to survive through all the updates reliably, and there's rarely any problems. So that's the point of using themes. And if you have a good theme that's possibly using a well-known framework and it's a child theme, then you can effortlessly and reliably click the update button without having any fear that it might break your stuff. Because that's a reasonable concern, and that's something that a lot of these managed hosting providers, they provide you solutions to actually better understand and actually more reliably update your website. And some of them offer what they call staging features or preview features that lets you test things out before it goes live. But whenever you're looking for a theme, and there's many ways out there to do it, there's many free themes as well as there's paid ones. What you're looking for is basically any one of these options here, and really all the above. You want the flexibility so you can customize it and customize the display of it. You want developer friendliness, meaning does it use is it popular? Basically, if a theme is popular, you can almost rest assured that other developers know how to work with it. And the reason why you need developers to like it is because there might be times when you need to search for something or make a change to your site, and you might actually be the person doing the changes, and other developers out there. A big shout out to Bill Erickson, by the way, and Chris Pearson from Studio Press. They actually provide code and samples to make it easy and on how you can change your website around. So if it's used by developers, you can also rest assured that you'll get development and resources and guidance on managing your website. Additionally, you want to look for ease of use. Obviously, you don't want to spend all day in a code editor. You definitely want some usability so you can actually navigate around your site and make changes when you need to. Lastly, you also want to make sure that your design overall is taking advantage of responsive features. So your website looks great, whether it's on a mobile phone or on a desktop. The other aspect of it, and the reason why I put responsive in here as almost a requirement, is if a theme is using responsive design, there's a good chance it probably has some good development best practices within it. So that should basically cover it. Again, what we use at Infusionsoft, we use both Thesis as well as Genesis in 2 different blogs. I personally like working with Genesis a little bit better, but in the end, they're basically the same. They're a theme framework and they have parent and child themes within them. You could spend all day on them, but you don't need to. A little bit more sort of related to themes that a lot of people are curious about is widgets. So some of you might recall that WordPress has a sidebar on the right side usually, where it has links and it has possibly a text area that you can put things in. It's important to realize that widgets aren't always the sidebar. You can put widgets anywhere. You can have a widget area at the top of your page, at the left of your page, at the bottom of your page, or on the right of your page, and you can have it all throughout your content. So basically, widgets are very useful to create really awesome web pages where it's not specifically the content that you're writing, but widgets usually occur outside of the content area. So say you publish a blog post, and hypothetically, let's say it was about Customer Hub, right? If you publish a blog post around that, but you also want to have a call to action at the bottom to send people to a certain landing page to learn more about that product, you could actually do that easily with themes. So I'm sorry, with widgets. And widgets actually make it easy so you can drop in any content that you want, generally speaking, into a widget. So here's a screenshot. You can see we have many options with our widgets. I know it's very hard to see, but if you look on the right side, I'm able to put a widget into the bottom of a blog post, and I literally just put text. It's HTML. That's really all it is. And we can also see on the sidebar that you can adjust different things and the location and the order of things. So when you customize your widgets, you can feel safe that you're not going to break anything. Widgets are relatively easy. They're on or off when it comes to your website. And you can drag them around. You can experiment. And I think this is something that I think a lot of you should explore. Look into more widget-based designs, or I'm sorry, widget-based themes. So it's easy to create content and display it wherever you want. So next topic here that we need to understand is a bit more about performance. So when I say performance, I'm talking about the speed of your website as well as the reliability of it. So there's going to be a time when you publish a piece of content or you do a massive promotion, and you're going to have thousands or maybe even hundreds of people accessing your website at once. And when multiple computers access your website, it can slow it down. But what slows down your website is not so much the people accessing it, but how your website actually behaves and how it serves content to all of those people. So assuming you did what do you call it, just a regular vanilla install of WordPress, and you don't have any caching features, and you don't have any other, optimizations at play, you probably can't handle more than 500 people at once accessing your website. And yeah, WordPress has made many advances over the years, but just by itself, it probably can't handle thousands of people accessing your website at once. So with that in mind, there's actually tools and methodologies on how you can improve the performance of your website. And you don't even have to be a coder. All you need to understand is just these these explanations, like sort of these methods to keep in mind as you're developing your site or you have someone developing it for you. And there's tools to even just look at it, even if you don't know what you're doing. It's always nice to look at the performance here. But the way I'm breaking it down is that there's a front end, there's a back end, and there's the admin area. The admin area, you're not going to be able to make a whole lot of changes around, except that there's ways to speed it up on your browser so it's not sluggish. The back end is basically things that are more technical. The front end are things that are also technical, but are literally what people are seeing on your website. Performance matters because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about conversions and sales. And also, obviously, the user experience. But I think if you have a poor user experience, you will probably also experience a dip in your conversions and sales. So performance is actually something which is something that a lot of you should care about when you're doing a product launch or you're launching a new website. It is absolutely vital to the success of your website for the short-term and long-term outcome. So to do a quick assessment on your website, there's going to be two services I recommend. One of them is webpagetest.org, and the second one is Google Page Speed Insights. If you just search for Page Speed Insights, you'll find it. It's the first result. And what these services do is they actually go out, they crawl your website, they look at all the code, they look at what it will look like on a computer, and they give you a performance output. So it's kind of like, going to the doctor and getting a checkup. Well, this is similar. It goes to your website and looks at the performance of it, and it makes recommendations. So you can see in the left screenshot here that we have A's and B's just about in every category here. That's what you want to go for. You don't have to worry too much about the progressive JPEGs unless it's like your landing page or you have something where you need to have a JPEG on there. It gives us an F rating, but that's the way that we're generating the images on the blog. So that's not really super important, but as long as you have a lot of the categories and you see a lot of green, it's good to know that you have that in place to ensure that you have a fast performing website. I know it's hard to see in a screenshot, but in the example, our Big Ideas blog basically loads in under 2 seconds. So just about a second per page load, which is really impressive considering how much content is on the page. So, and that's something that's also making use of a CDN. You can see the check mark on that. So the point of this is that take a look at your website, plug it into these tools, and see what recommendations it tells you. A lot of the recommendations will be technical in nature, so you probably don't want to go off and just apply the changes right away. You want to understand what is it trying to ask you to do. So just try to read the explanations and understand them. If you're not sure, you can always ask around. If you are active in a WordPress community, you could say, hey, webpagetest.org says I need to move my JavaScript to the bottom. How do I do that? And I almost guarantee you're going to get a response on how to do that. So more specifically, on the front end, what you want to do is make sure that you're implementing caching. What caching does is it saves a copy of every page of your website and it serves it quicker. And there's multiple types of caching here. So developers, you could sit down, it's okay. But at a high level here, what caching does is it serves pages really quickly on your website. You could do that through a plugin. You can do that also through more advanced methods, using something called Varnish or something like that. But again, you're not going to really be messing with Varnish. It's going to be your web host that does. But generally speaking, you're going to be serving content really quickly to visitors without it having any impact on your database itself. What you also want to make sure that you do is minimize the number of JavaScripts and embeds where possible. So I've been to landing pages where they have multiple videos or they're doing an iframe or they're pulling in all these different things all at once on a page. And yes, it might be loading quickly from your server, but it is not loading quick on the end user's computer. So you want to make sure that you minimize the number of embeds where possible. So, preferably only one YouTube video per page, one slide share per page, where appropriate. If you need more, that's no problem. But just thinking, long term here, maybe your homepage shouldn't have more than one video on it. I've seen a homepage with 10 videos on it, and the performance was dramatically slower than any other website I've been to. This is a common recommendation here, but you want to make sure that you compress your images. It absolutely matters to the speed of your website. And also your web host will thank you for it. So when you actually compress your images, meaning you save a web version of it through Photoshop, or you run it through a tool like Smush It, what that does is it takes out the additional junk or data in your image and only shows it just compresses the size of the image basically. So when the image is smaller, people can see it quicker. You lose a little fidelity in some of the images, but not much. Here's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid images that are 2 megabytes in size. There's no need to have a 2 megabyte image on your website for people to see on every page load. What you do want to go for is maybe an image size of 100 kilobytes or less. Again, run your website through the web page test or other tools, and it will give you recommendations if you need to significantly compress your images. Sometimes you can't, and that's okay. But what you want to do is at least make the attempt and compress whatever large images you can, on your website. This is a little bit more technical, and this doesn't always apply to everyone here. But if you can implement what they call a content delivery network, or a CDN, to serve up big files, so videos, audio, PDFs, even your CSS files, or your JavaScript if you have that. If you can use a CDN to deliver that data instead of your website or your web host, the better it will be. What a CDN does is it takes a file and replicates it to all these servers around the world. So no matter where someone is located, they will be geographically targeted to actually get the file from a server in their area. So the benefit here is that your website would load better for people all around the world. Some managed WordPress providers actually provide you with a CDN feature already built in. And what these also do is they give you access to upgrade to that for a nominal fee. The goal here is that what you want to make sure that you do is you don't want to bite off the elephant here in one bite. You have to you have to go after it one step at a time. So the CDN thing is just a high-level recommendation. You don't have to do it right away. Definitely focus on these other areas first. But if you actually have a WordPress site and you have lots of content on there and you have videos on there, absolutely, I recommend that you look into a CDN so you can render a better experience for your audience. And also, they'll tell you, right? If you're serving videos and you're not using YouTube or something, and your people complain, hey, it's buffering or it takes forever to load, that's a good sign that you need a CDN. The back end of your website, again, not too much you can do here, but what you want to do is make sure that you're using either a dedicated or managed hosting provider. If you have a developer who is working with you to really customize your website, they need to make, you need to make sure that they're using efficient database queries. WordPress improved the way that developers can access the database, so it doesn't offer such a strong impact on it. You also want to minimize the number of plugins. I think I've logged into someone else's WordPress account and they literally had like 75 plugins, and it was pretty amazing that it was working, but 75 plugins and the site was very sluggish. I was able to cut that down to about 15 plugins and put in some features into what they call the functions file, and the website was able to load significantly faster. It's because plugins are always resident in memory of the web server, whether you're using the feature or not. So definitely minimize the plugins where possible. Don't freak out if you have more than 15. That's totally fine. But what you want to do is, if you're trying to optimize the performance here, and fractions of a second do matter in the end. If comfortable here, there's another technology called Cloudflare. Cloudflare is basically caching at a higher level, where it's proxying all traffic through their servers before it reaches your servers. It's actually really easy to use, but I'm going to caution you, it probably takes a little while for you to understand the concept and make changes to your DNS settings. On a side note, be careful. DNS also regulates your email. So what you want to do is make sure you write down or make a copy of the settings just in case you need to revert back. But the benefits of Cloudflare are amazing. If you have a Cloudflare set up properly with your website, especially with WordPress, along with a caching plugin, you can actually serve your website in less than a second per page load. I've seen websites load in 300 milliseconds. And that was not just from my own computer, that was from the web page test. The page actually loaded in literally a fraction of a second. And that was pretty impressive to see. So Cloudflare, again, it's free. They offer a paid upgrade if you're going to use an SSL certificate. But it's something that can definitely improve performance of your website long term here. And lastly, and this is also equally as important here, if you're not sure as to how to improve the performance here, and you've tried everything you can to minimize the number of plugins, you move your JavaScript to the bottom, and you've compressed your images here, and everything's going smoothly. You've done everything that you can, and you still want to improve it. Just contact your hosting provider. They want to hear from you, and they would love to help you if your website's running slow. Sometimes their technicians can do a diagnostic on their end, and they can tell you things that you or I wouldn't know about how to optimize your site. Likewise, performance environments vary. So, for instance, what would normally speed up a website under DreamHost would not work to speed up a website in WP Engine. So just keep that in mind, that your web host has your best interests at heart. And if you're not sure, just ask them, and they will either point you to a resource, or they will just do an audit and they'll just make some recommendations themselves. And we'll get into one more aspect of it here as to how we can tighten that up here and give you a good recommendation. Now, the admin area. This is a very commonly overlooked setting. So whenever you first log into WordPress, you probably see a lot of links on the screen, a lot of what we call widgets are appearing on the screen, and sometimes it can be a little confusing and even slow when you log in. A very quick shortcut on how you can clean up your dashboard on WordPress or any other page within the admin area is to look in the top right corner under your username, and you can actually click onto something that says Screen Options. Screen Options, all you have to do is check or uncheck the associated areas, and it will not load those objects in your browser. So for instance, on the home page, I don't need to see the welcome area. I don't need WordPress news. I don't need WordPress blog. I don't need Quick Press, and I don't need plugins. But I would like to see the other plugins or the other data that's being shown on the page, so I keep those checked. The fewer checkboxes you have, the quicker your dashboard will load. So if you ever find yourself, navigating your admin area of WordPress, consider unchecking some of the objects, and it will speed it up. Another situation you might see is that when you try to access your all posts category, it might take a long time to load, or you see that it's not loading very quickly, all the time. You could see that. So we have the SEO plugin here, the WordPress SEO plugin, and it adds these other columns. It adds focus keyword, meta description, SEO title, etc. I don't need that when I'm making changes to my back end. Those are nice to haves, but they're not must haves. So I uncheck those. I don't need them. And as a result, whenever I go into the back end and I need to make changes, I can quickly do it without it slowing down my browser. So this is useful, especially if you have a slower computer or if you're accessing multiple WordPress sites. It's good to minimize the number of objects loading in your admin. So final topic here, or second to last topic here that we want to get into is Infusionsoft. So Infusionsoft, you're primarily going to run into it in one of these four areas when it comes to WordPress. Understanding how to manage your web forms and display them to your audience. How to enable or track the data of people visiting your website. Sometimes, for some of you who want to run a membership website, you're sometimes conflicted. Should I use WordPress or should I use Customer Hub? I'm going to break that down easily here. And also, hey, how do I sell products and services on my website? Because WordPress is a little confusing, kind of out of the box for that. It's not built for it. But there's a couple ideas here that I have that will set you up. At the end of the day, when you think about WordPress and Infusionsoft together, you really need to think about why. And it's not a bad reason to ask why. Just keep asking yourself, well, why do I need to integrate? What's the point? What am I really trying to do in the end? Because if you ask yourself why like 4 times as to why you want to do something, you will really get to the root cause of what you're trying to get to. Once you know the root cause, you can then be more empowered to pick the right solution for your business. Sometimes the solution is sticking with Infusionsoft. Other times it will be other solutions in a WordPress community. So at the same time, don't reinvent the wheel. There's often a lot of tools already at your disposal. So if you think you need to hire an API expert to develop out an Infusionsoft integration with Infusionsoft, look first before you do that, because that can be a very costly venture with a minimal payoff. So just check around, look at the tools and services around you. There's lots of apps in the Infusionsoft marketplace that can help you as well. So let's get started here. So in web forms, I'm going to give you some quick tips on all of these, right? So if you're using web forms from Infusionsoft, make sure that that you are using the unstyled HTML within WordPress. You can use the JavaScript one. And again, there's no problem with that. However, it will slow down your website a little bit. When you're copying the code from Infusionsoft to WordPress, it's good to know how are you serving up that code. Often you can put that into a widget and you'll be just fine. However, on WordPress.com, you are not allowed to do that. Why? Because they are fearful that of spammers. They don't want to have spammers taking over their sites and putting in JavaScript code. But traditional HTML form code, you'll be just fine. Often the unstyled HTML code is what developers like, and also what you might like, because it uses standard, basically standard instructions on how to render web forms. And when you do that, you want to make sure, your WordPress theme already has styling for web forms, so it will just adopt whatever your theme already has for it. Lastly, whenever you're setting up a web form in Infusionsoft or as a part of your campaign, set your thank you page to a page within WordPress. And you can redirect visitors. So it's a nice seamless experience. They're not taken necessarily off-site when they fill out your web form and they sign up to your list. And then you could just put in the messaging, hey, thank you for signing up. I'm going to contact you, blah, blah, blah. The thing about thank you pages, though, sometimes you don't want to have those indexed. If you have an SEO plugin, it makes it really easy to tell search engines not to index a thank you page. It's usually just a checkbox. So just think about that when you set that up. It makes a nice, seamless, easy experience when people opt into your content off of your website. Analytics. This is another big aspect of it here. I can't tell you enough. I think it's pretty awesome that Infusionsoft can actually tell you what pages a visitor accessed before they filled out your form. And we do that by use of a tracking script. And what you have to do is basically, you can either use a hosted web form, again, the JavaScript-based one, because it already has it built in. And you don't have to do it twice. You only have to do it once. Or you can just include the tracking script, which is pictured below on how to access it. You can use a tracking script, include that in the footer of your website, and it will actually track the data. And it does it quietly. It's not that intrusive at all. And it loads fairly quick as long as you put it at the bottom. Again, also, if you run a diagnostic on your website and you see the tracking script is the longest loading item, don't worry about it. What it's doing is it's trying to capture the time on site. So the longest loading component of it is not accurate. So just trust that, if you have the analytics script on there, as long as it's last loading on the website, you'll be just fine. To access this data in Infusionsoft, under the marketing section, click on the lead generation and then web analytics. And what that will do, also when you pull up a contact record, what that will do is it will show you what pages people have accessed and how many leads have you generated from them and all of that. So that's pretty exciting. Membership sites, again, a big question. It's a popular topic. A lot of people are asking about this. Should you use WordPress-based membership site, or should you use an original solution here with Customer Hub? My recommendation is that if you are savvy with WordPress and you have a lot of content in there already, you might as well stick with it. There's not going to be much of a difference other than you spending more time in migrating your data over to Customer Hub. However, if you do use WordPress and you want to stick with it, I want to recommend iMember 360. That is a solution that a developer by the name of Bob Keen team, they put in a lot of work to develop it and make sure it works seamlessly behind the scenes, talking with Infusionsoft and with your web server and back and forth, back and forth. And basically, I've heard nothing but great reviews from people who have actually implemented it and used it. In a nutshell, iMember 360 allows you to put in logic on your pages that says, hey, I only want these people to access these pages, and I want to render different content for people who don't have this access. So it offers rivaling features to Customer Hub. I'm sure Bob would probably tell you it probably offers more features than Customer Hub. But in the end, check out both of them and see if it works for your business, if it fits your needs. Because at the end of the day, that's what counts. It's the success of your business that matters here. In general, what Customer Hub aims to be is an easy and powerful solution for businesses to launch a membership site. There might be a time when you might outgrow Customer Hub and need to get a more robust solution, and that's kind of where WordPress might be that next solution. So just keep that in mind. Both of them are really good solutions. They both help you run membership sites. They both integrate with your Infusionsoft account. It just depends on your allegiance to WordPress, and it depends on your savviness with working with premium content. Another big question, I literally have a 3-page long email sitting in my inbox that I need to get back to about e-commerce. So generally speaking, here's my high-level recommendation. Let Infusionsoft run the e-commerce in your business, and you will be happy. When I say that, I'm not saying that you can't use WordPress for e-commerce or you don't have any other solutions. There are. But if you have Infusionsoft and you already have products in Infusionsoft, just point people with a hyperlink over to the Infusionsoft shopping cart page with the product linked into it, and you'll be just fine. The thing you need to keep in mind is whenever people are conducting sales online, you want to make sure that you have an HTTPS or an SSL certificate that is binding that connection. Nobody wants to put in a credit card into a website that doesn't have SSL in the address bar, the big green lock. So what you want to do is don't use an iframe of the Infusionsoft storefront unless your website is also being served in an HTTPS connection. What will happen if you don't is, one, you risk violating PCI compliance guidelines. Two, your visitors will be notified that they are displaying both secure and insecure content on your website. And then three, it's not a good idea to iframe in another site's e-commerce page because it gets confusing for people. They don't know exactly what's occurring, and it can be a little confusing for them. So the best solution here is to either link directly to that page, either pop a new browser window, or handle the transaction yourself within WordPress. I don't see any major reason why it's bad to do that. other than you'll need to figure out a way to transmit that data to Infusionsoft so you can mark it and follow up with your customers afterward. But there's not that many reasons why you can't do it. Again, it requires some additional configuration when you set up e-commerce with WordPress. You need to put in some additional settings within a WordPress we call it config file to basically say, hey, serve this website in HTTPS mode, and here's my SSL certificate and all that kind of stuff. And it will make sure it does it for you. There's two alternatives out there, which have had a lot of very favorable reviews, both from developers and other business owners, are the WooCommerce framework, as well as Cart66. In the end, they help you sell products online through WordPress, but they definitely vary greatly in how they do that. So for more information, just check out those two solutions. But again, in the meantime, since you're probably an Infusionsoft user, if you're on this call today, let Infusionsoft handle the transaction. And you can actually create simple product pages where you basically have a picture of the product, a description, and then a hyperlink out to the Infusionsoft shopping cart, and you'll be good to go. Woohoo, we got Infusionsoft done here. So last topic here, we're basically wrapping up here, is security. Security is vital to WordPress, but there's a great quote here from Bruce Schneier is about the security mindset, right? So security is not a technological solution here. It's something that you need to understand. It's a mindset of how to think securely, right? Updates are useful to help patch the basic technical bugs. But if you have the username of admin and you have the password, love123, that's absolutely going to make you insecure no matter how many updates WordPress gets. So what you want to do is use very unique usernames, use very, very unique passwords. And you also want to make sure that whenever you access your website, for uploading it, you're using secure FTP or using secure Wi-Fi in your computer. You have all of your computer's updates. And likewise, you also want to make sure that your plugins are up to date. So that's basically the recommendation on security is updates actually are good, but you also need to make sure you have extremely good passwords. There was a recent controversy or popular news here about WordPress's, there's a botnet going out there targeting WordPress users. It was evident, there was data that supports that the only thing the botnet was doing was attacking people with weak passwords. So if you had a password that was love123 or any other basic words that you can think of, it was trying those words and trying to hack into people's WordPress sites, and they were successful. They got into a few of them. But if you had a really good password and you did not use the admin username, you were pretty much good to go. Also, on a side note, managed WordPress hosts actually do a lot of the security work for you. They often have firewalls on their end that basically filter traffic, sometimes a little too aggressively, but they do it as a way to make sure that your site does not become targeted in such an attack. So there's a lot of best practices, and I have a link out on the Big Ideas blog explaining how to be secure with WordPress. And after the webinar today, and we'll have this recorded here, we'll make sure that you get the links to all these resources that I'm talking about. Lastly, here's my list of recommended plugins on how basically my recommendations for plugins to consider. Here's a quick blurb about each one. WordPress SEO, I've probably mentioned it a dozen times already. If you're not using it to manage your titles and meta descriptions and everything else in WordPress, you're missing out. It also supports sitemaps. It also supports Open Graph. And it's also very lightweight on your database. So it's pretty good, and you definitely want to check it out. W3 Total Cache. This is a lot more technical in nature, but it offers the best performance for rendering your website quickly for website visitors. And as a result, it lightens the load on your web server. Discuss, and that's not a typo, it's that's how it's spelled. Discuss is a commenting software that replaces your WordPress comments with Discuss comments. If you've ever been to the Big Ideas blog or the Infusionsoft blog, you'll notice that the comments area is powered by Discuss. It allows people to easily sign in and comment on your stuff, and for you to get notifications and for them to get notifications when you reply and vice versa. So definitely recommend that. It takes a little configuration to get it going, but again, it works very easily in a WordPress environment. Backup Buddy is a paid solution, but this makes backing up and restoring your backup of your website very easy. It integrates with Amazon, Dropbox. Heck, it even emails it to you if you want it to. It could also store the backups on another portion of your web server if you wanted to, although I don't recommend that. Backup Buddy is a solution that everyone loves, so they can quickly manage their WordPress website and be able to sleep a little easier at night, knowing that they can pull a backup if they need it. It is a paid solution now, but it's like $30 or something, so a lot of people strongly recommend that. P3 Plugin Profiler. This is actually a plugin that's maintained by GoDaddy. It allows you to do really good diagnostics into your plugins. If you have a plugin that's misbehaving, or if you think your site's getting really slow, this allows you to do a performance test on all of your plugins to see which one is going slow. So it's free. Just look up P3 Plugin Profiler and you'll have lots of fun with that. Jetpack is another plugin that's produced by the Automatic company. Jetpack is, for some, it could be a nuisance, and I understand that. It's a little bit of a nuisance here when they have updates. But Jetpack is very powerful to add new features to your WordPress instance. It gives you a ton of new widgets. It gives you a lot of new capabilities. And generally speaking, it's pretty darn reliable because it's produced by the guys at Automatic. So if you're not using Jetpack, you're missing out. The other aspect of Jetpack is it provides stats. And in addition to Google Analytics, you also probably want to look at stats to your blog and just to make sure that they line up. I've found that Jetpack counts traffic a little differently than the way Google does. So there's a little bit of a variance, maybe about 3%. Between the two, and it's interesting to see what kind of data Jetpack provides in their stats as what Google provides. The thing that's nice is that Jetpack stats are updated instantly, whereas Google's typically have a 2-day delay on that. Editorial calendar, if you create a lot of content and you schedule content, then you definitely want to use editorial calendar so you can plan out and easily schedule posts ahead of time. It's easy to manage, and whenever you need to make a change, you just literally drag and drop a post, and you're good to go. That is used extremely well here at Infusionsoft, and our very own Andrea Parker lives and dies by that calendar. So it is something that we love a lot here. Simple URLs. Those of you who participate in affiliate marketing and you want to mask the URL of an affiliate link, all you have to do is load up the Simple URLs plugin, create your affiliate link, and you can have it point to yourdomain.com/go/the affiliate name. And that allows you to easily kind of track the clicks on it, as well as not tip people off easily that it's an affiliate link. So it's nice, it's easy, it's lightweight, and it's awesome. Another plugin named Better WP Security, or BWP Security, is a useful plugin because it helps you accomplish all the security tips I mentioned in the previous slide, as well as it allows you to go a little bit overkill and really, really, really lock your site down. It guides you along, but just a word of caution is that you can break your website as a result. So approach that cautiously. But for the basic things, it will absolutely guide you along without practically any problems. Gravity Forms is another premium plugin that's in the WordPress marketplace, where I believe for about 30 or $40, you're able to have really slick looking contact forms on your website. And they also provide an Infusionsoft integration. So that's really awesome. So you can have really awesome web forms on your website that are being processed through this plugin. And then what that does, that plugin will transmit some of the data into Infusionsoft. So all you have to do to find that is search the WordPress plugin site for Gravity Forms and Infusionsoft, and you'll be good to go. The last one, an honorable mention here, I mentioned it earlier, Scribe SEO. It is a paid plugin, and all you have to do is, I think you just go to scribeseo.com, download it. and install it, and you'll be able to get a good idea of how it can help your content creation efforts. Again, it looks at search engine data. It's going to make recommendations for what to write and make sure that you have a lot of direction on that without violating any of the webmaster guidelines out there. So the next and final slide here, and we are done with the lecture on WordPress here, and we're going to be going to questions, is how can you contribute to WordPress? So there's a myth out there that only developers can contribute, that you need to be a coder. That's not true. Anyone from all areas of experience can actually contribute. I'm actually fairly active in the WordPress support forums. You can also contribute to the ecosystem by writing a review about a plugin or giving it a good rating. Reviews are important, so developers, one, they acknowledge your gratitude, and then two, it helps others see if a plugin is good or not. And if a plugin messed you up, it's always good to go to their support forum and give them a chance to fix it. But also, it's good to give an honest review as well. Another way to participate is to attend local WordPress meetups. They are around. If you go to meetup.com, you can look for a WordPress meetup in your area. And those usually are attended by other fellow WordPress users, and also be able to look out for WordCamps in your area as well, which are big WordPress conferences, kind of like Icon. So that's basically it. That wraps up this webinar here. So let me go ahead, take a look at some of the questions that you guys have had, and we'll see what we can do to answer your questions. So just give me a second here. All right, I see lots of questions here, so just give me a second. I'm going through it. Oh yeah, all you have to do, just include the hashtag ISMastermind, and I'll be looking at both of these on Twitter to answer your questions. So let's see. So here's a question from Tim. If you are using WordPress.com hosting, can you move to the hosted one easily? The answer is yes. They offer export features, as well as I think they also offer a migration service for a very nominal fee that lets you easily move your website from Automatic to WordPress.org. Good question. Cheryl has stated she didn't have a good luck with GoDaddy hosting. She just wants to add that just as a little feedback here. Here's the thing with that GoDaddy, there's mixed reviews out there on it, but stay tuned. They have something in the works for affordable managed WordPress hosting, so definitely stay tuned. Probably in the next few months from GoDaddy, they'll probably have an announcement soon. HostGator, same question. I have no opinions of them, but I know people who don't always have a favorable opinion of their hosting options. But again, you get what you pay for when it comes to shared hosting. Cloud hosting, generally speaking, cloud hosting, all hosting is in the cloud by definition, right? It's a service that they provide through the internet, and they're using multiple servers to accomplish that. So generally, all hosting is already in the cloud. So another question here from Robin. She's asking if it makes sense to include a keyword in the category when you're managing your site. So for instance, free crowdfunding training versus paid crowdfunding training. Really good question. It's good to keep your categories broad. I would probably say training would be the name of that category. And those could actually be tags. But it's up to you. If you actually have a lot of content that you can deliver strongly in both areas, then yes, maybe a category might be more ideal. Is it a bad thing to have too many categories? I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just not recommended. It's good to keep your categories cleaned up so whenever you're publishing content, you can easily organize it and present it in a clean way for web visitors. Another question here from Chris regarding YouTube. Can you embed a video or a YouTube snippet or shortcode without it showing the other videos at the end? Short answer is yes. Long answer is you have to look at the variables on the internet. Just look up how to embed YouTube video without related videos, and you can easily just add that on to the URL. If I recall, it requires putting an ampersand and rel equals 0. And that's how you omit the related videos from appearing at the end of a YouTube embed. But really good question. And if you just type that in Google, you'll absolutely be able to get the code in that as well. As far as SEO, and this is actually a good question here, what are my thoughts on DIY Themes Thesis versus StudioPress's Genesis? In the end, it's all the same. It's content and it's just displaying it to search engines. I think where Genesis wins a little more favorably is they're using HTML5 and they are rendering a little bit of metadata within each page that you access that could improve SEO, but right now it's definitely they're about the same when it comes to that. Another good question. How do you find a shortcode if you're not sure of what it is? If you just Google for WordPress shortcodes, Automatic has some documentation as to exactly how to use the codes and which ones there are. Pretty much if you can embed a piece of content into your blog and display it, there is a shortcode available. So that could mean WordPress, that could mean Google Docs, that could mean Google Maps, YouTube, Twitter. Like Twitter's awesome because all you need to do is copy a link from the Twitter page, put it in your blog, and that's it, you're done. But definitely check online, just Google for WordPress shortcodes. I'm still reading up here more questions. We're going to fire up Twitter. Just give me a second. So let's see. Another good question here, basically about JavaScript web forms. Performance versus lead source tracking. This is a question that you have to make as a business where the performance isn't drastic. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to slow your site down to a crawl, but it is going to make an impact on the conversions of your website. So what you want to do is make sure that just do some testing, look at how it performs on your page. And if you don't like it, use a traditional unstyled HTML form and make sure that you include the Infusionsoft tracking script on your website. Really good question. Thanks, Gareth. Is it bad to, I guess, SEO index and members only page from Robin? Really good question on that. So what you want to do is make sure that the pages that you render for search engines are accessible and it's not a poor experience for them. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that the pages are easily read, easily consumed, by visitors. So by consuming a members only page and someone goes there looking for tips on how to do something, they will easily bounce out of your site and that will actually lower your rankings long term. However, if you can issue preview content for people who are not members yet, and you can address their benefit or address their pains that they are asking, then you will be in a much better position to make an upsell and capture their lead and get them into a members only situation. A really, really good example on how that is really well executed is by going to Copyblogger's Authority. And what Authority does, it gives you content, but they make sure to tell you what content you're not getting. And they encourage you to sign up. I think they have a free trial or something that you can check out. If you go to copyblogger.com and look for the link called Authority, it'll give you much more details on that. Still going through a few of the questions here. So just give me a second. Looking through some of these. Quick question. Michael asked, what's an iframe? An iframe is a way to embed a web page inside of another web page. If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. But some people want to put an iframe where on top of their website, they actually have like another web page that loads, which would be like the Infusionsoft storefront. And that can work for testing purposes, but it is not recommended to do that. Let's see. Okay, good question. Michael also asked, how can you change his username? Because WordPress does not let you change your username natively from the options. If you use the Better WP Security plugin, you can change your username, and you can also change your user ID, and you can do that relatively easily. All right, answering a few more questions here. Thank you guys so much. I can obviously see all the tweets that you're asking and catching up on that. So basically, how do you pass data from an email to a form on WordPress, like how it works on Infusionsoft landing pages, followed by tutorials? Um, okay, really good question. So basically, how do you actually pass data from an email into your own WordPress site? It requires a little bit of coding into what they call the functions file to be listening for that. Generally speaking, you would want to pass data from one email into an Infusionsoft web form. If you can't do that, you do need to hire a coder to actually set up that listening device on your website to be listening for the first name, listening for the email address, etc. So there's not an easy solution for that yet. But if you're using a JavaScript-based web form, it will listen for it and it will fill in the fields accordingly. But right now, there's not an easy solution to do that yet. But again, there's code, there's some tutorials online that you can actually implement, and I'm sure you could probably find a developer relatively affordable on freelancer.com or Odesk that can implement that within your WordPress site. So now we're going to the questions on Twitter. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. So basically, they added the Infusionsoft tracking code. They did an API key and you activated it. Is there anything else? You're basically done. You don't need to do anything else. What Philip is talking about is that there's a plugin in the marketplace that, a plugin that's in the WordPress plugin repository that Jordan Hatch published, which allows you to automatically pull in your tracking code and display it. It's unsupported, or it's lightly supported by Infusionsoft, but generally speaking, as long as you download and you can install that plugin and it runs, you're good to go. There's no additional work that you need to do. What that plugin is doing is it is operating on the back end, and it is publishing the code at the bottom of your website where it needs to. Really good question. So question about the recording today. This will be recorded and published online afterward. I'll also make the slides available, and I might also do a blog post about it as well with the links as well. Let's see. Good. All right, cool. Looks like we already answered these questions here. So thank you guys so much. Let me just do one quick check just to see if you guys also maybe tweeted Ask Infusionsoft. So I'm looking here. All right, perfect. Looks like that wraps up all the questions today. If you guys have any questions, once again, I am very happy to provide you with this information. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter. I'm at Joe Manna. If you have questions about Infusionsoft, go ahead and tweet them as well. It's Ask Infusionsoft. And I'd love your feedback on this webinar, and let me know if you have any questions. Have an awesome day, and we'll be working on getting a recording out to everyone soon. Thank you so much.